Right, apparently we are live. Good evening.
Good evening.
Fortunately, we've got nobody in. Well, we've got Mr. Shinobi in. I made a bit of an arse on the title. I missed out a letter H, which kind of made the description read somewhat differently. But Mr. L's eagle eyes spotted it in the nick of time.
Yeah, I'll take the credit for that one.
If there's 100 people would know why, anyway. So how are you doing this evening, guys? How's the weather?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I've just double checked. We are absolutely live.
Good stuff. Evening, Mr. Shinobi. Yeah, I was out with the dogs about half an hour ago, and I looked at the window and I thought it looks really nice. I'll go for a nice leisurely walk. And it was absolutely bloody Baltic. It's seriously cold.
Yeah, it's not too great down here either.
It's been sunny today, but it's been cold in the breeze. I was something about capturing some C64 screenshots earlier on. I just had a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and my other problem computer in the hallway. I was sat on there, and I was getting a through draft, and I stood up and I thought, fucking hell, I'm freezing. I was nearly shaking. So, yeah, it looks nice, but it's bloody cold.
So how you all been? You're still furloughed at the moment, Mr. P, aren't you?
I am. I've got a training day on Monday where we're going to... the boss wants us to everyone to learn a bit of the business, so I'll start arguing about money. I won't get none, but I'll make a comedy of it probably. But yeah, just that, and then I think if we open up, we're going to be back after the next bank holiday. But I don't think there's going to be enough social distancing space, and I'm a bit of a git when it comes to things like that, so I'll point that out.
Yeah. Evening, Vinny. We've got Mr. Vinny the Macam and Shinobi. What's Vinny saying there? It's cold. I was out doing essential shopping earlier and made myself a Bovril when I got home. I didn't even know Bovril was still a thing. Do you guys drink Bovril?
Almost constantly.
Is that tongue in cheek, or are you being serious?
Yeah, serious. Yeah, I practically
Really?
live on the stuff. If I'm not drinking that, I'm drinking Earl Grey. That's about it.
No, right.
Would that be Earl Grey hot, Lucosa?
Oh yeah, it's got to be hot. Yeah.
If I'm right in thinking, Bovril no longer contains beef.
I haven't got the faintest clue.
Right, well, that's fucked up that topic of conversation.
Okay, yeah. I just drink the stuff. I ain't got a fucking clue what's in it, you know.
That's a big problem I find with food nowadays. I mean, everything that we remember as kids, like juice and iron brew. Do you get iron brew down south?
Yeah.
You do, aye. They've changed the recipe, and it's the same with food. I mean, whatever happened to Milky Way? They were lovely, and then the sort of the main bit went from this kind of Commodore 64 beige to like white, and it's just got a completely different taste. It's just not the same at all.
Did they not change Iron Brew back again because you lot cried freedom and kicked up about it?
Well, you can actually buy a Iron Brew original in the big bottles, and I shit you not, it's £2 a bottle.
Well, that's still cheaper than Pepsi down here.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Pepsi down here is £2.40 for a 2 litre bottle.
Bloody hell! And is that in like supermarkets?
Yeah. It's
Why is
ridiculous, isn't it? Oh, fuck knows why. One of the reasons why I don't drink it.
Yeah, not big.
If I have Coke, it's really expensive because I like a 4-to-1 ratio with Jack Daniels. So the point of that.
Yeah.
Even the Knox wagon wheels used to be massive. It's funny how when people talk about things how they've got smaller.
It's always the wagon wheels that gets mentioned. Yeah.
I would actually love to see if that was true. I mean, were they smaller? Do you think?
Oh yeah, it's definitely true. Yeah, they were a lot bigger than they are now. But
I mean, they're going to look a bit smaller because their hands have grown. But yeah, they're definitely smaller than they were. They used to be like dustbin lids when I was a kid.
It's like when I visited a street that I grew up on about 10 years ago, and I always remember it seemed like a massive street, and it's actually tiny, you know what I mean? So it's amazing how when you're when you're a kid, you do definitely, obviously, things are different size-wise, but I'll take your word for it that wagon wheels were bigger. We also got into tonight about Mr. Racy, good evening. Robert Mitchell, evening all.
Evening,
Now,
Jack.
this is completely unscripted. I know anytime you see us three together, we're usually talking Sid tunes. But tonight, it's just going to be a ramble. We'll probably go for 9:30 at the very latest. How's that for you guys?
Yeah, that works.
As you like, mate.
Yeah. I say that every time and it always runs over and over and over. But
Yeah, we're still here at 11. Yeah.
This is totally unscripted. We're just going to talk nonsense. If there's anything anybody wants to ask us, anything at all you want us to talk about, then just kick off.
You say totally unscripted as if that makes this unique. Every video I've done with you has been totally unscripted.
I don't want to give anybody the illusion that we actually plan these things or actually rehearse them in any shape or form.
Well, to be fair, we do pre-choose the Sid. In fact, Luke Ozer, it's you that don't normally have your listing order for that.
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm always ending up picking them in random order.
Leaving it to the last bloody minute. I must admit, I wasn't concerned, but I had my doubts as to whether how sort of popular number 3 would be. Because obviously the first one, I think we did definitely go for what are our favourite Sid tunes, and then the next one was right. I've still got some that I really like. Then the third one was like, okay, we'll need to pick some more. But I think that's going to be some of the comments. It's probably garnered some of the nicest comments. I think it's suffice to say people want to see a fourth one.
Well, so that is the impression I get, especially there are quite a few sort of very obvious, well-known classics that not only have we not chosen, we've never even mentioned in any of the previous videos. So, if worst comes to worst, we can always fall back on some of them.
Aye.
Well, I can choose Sids until the cows come home. I mean, I really can. I mean, it's like when I record the albums. I mean, I've recorded it's something like 12 to 14 hours worth of music now, and I've got this anthology of Joe and Tell coming out. And then I've got one that I'm a modern times one. I've got one of martial arts, and there's so many different ones I can choose, and I'm still going. I'm not bored of it yet. I've been doing it for 2 years, so
yeah. I was recording a video just before this actually. I'm not going to tell you what the game was, but the tune was excellent. So I think I'll probably stick that in my favourite Sid tunes. It was a C64 game I'd never played before, but it's amazing just how many good sort of tunes there are out there. Eh?
I do have a habit of reading between the lines. The fact that you said the tune is excellent, but you've not mentioned anything about the game, tells me the game itself is shite.
Actually, you're wrong.
My powers of prediction once again. Anyone who's seen any of my Elite Dangerous videos, know that my powers of prediction are as shite as it gets. Everything I predict, the exact opposite happens.
I don't even bother playing Elite Dangerous now. I just watch his videos. I don't need to get shot by Fargoids when he does it for me.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. L, what's that in the background? It looks like a PlayStation 3.
That's my cable box for me at Cable Telly.
I see, right. It's not plugged in, obviously.
Yeah, it is. That's yeah. I don't know why I haven't put it somewhere. Somewhere else now. Yeah.
I've changed angles for this evening. I thought, now I'm having the sofa.
Yeah, I changed angles as well. Can you tell?
yeah, it's 4 creases left there.
Yeah.
What we got here? Glider Rider. I think the 128K Spectrum one is good, but I think it sounds a bit thin compared to the Sid version.
Yeah. When I put what was it? Stormbringer in the second one, I was that close to putting in Glider Rider, and at the last second, no, Stormbringer just edges it, just.
Yeah, I'm not. I know we want to kind of. We've obviously got dedicated videos for doing our Sid stuff, but I can't say I'm a massive fan of David Whittaker. I think what he does is good, but it tends to be real jangly, sort of upbeat kind of music.
It's probably a bit of an acquired taste. I think his stuff, yeah, okay, he has done some, duff pieces, but when you consider that, I don't know how many alone, but his Amiga and 64 combined, he's done over 800, so you can't expect him to be like fantastic all the way through that. So, but yeah, I think he has done some great stuff.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's that Ray C. So I'll just bring up the comment. Actually, now that we know how to do it, I'll soon be uploading the greatest 300 C64 game tunes, probably in separate parts, just adding the final touches. Many are from games composers I've never heard of. Yeah, interesting. I wouldn't even know how to begin to list 300. I mean, there's just so many, isn't there?
Yeah, if I was doing a video like that, I'd be thinking, right, okay, we'll do 300. By the time I get to the fourth one, I'll be saying, right, I'm fucking sick of this. I'll make it a top 4,
Yeah, that is realised a long time ago. I mean, that last video that I put out a few weeks ago, that was the year that was. You have no idea. I think it was on the Spectrum, and I featured like 95 Spectrum games. That collectively must have taken 10 hours to make. And you get a handful of views, and you're like, "What's the point?"
Well, that is one of the reasons why I put very little effort into mine. I basically just record it all off the fly, edit off the start and end points. That's it. Just slap it out there and get rid of it. I don't like to do too much editing. In some cases, it can't be avoided. But, yeah, for the most part, I just let it run and, put it out there, fuck-ups and everything.
Mr. DJ, what's he saying? Love Lacosa's beard reminds me of Jeff from Biker Grove.
Oh, well, is his two-coloured as well?
I don't know. Is it not BYKER, Biker Grove? That's where that index started their illustrious career, is it not? I think it was.
It was, but I don't remember the spelling because I thought the program was shit. Well, I never watched it.
I should say nothing. At least you can spell your name, Mr. Ellie.
Yeah, someone can. Yeah, there you go. take note of it. There you go.
Now, listen, I know we've said unscripted. I've just written down a couple of things. A question that I was asked in last week's Friday Waffle was, what would you say would be the ultimate 8-bit computer? Now, I know what Mr. P is going to say, but breaking it down into like keyboards, etc., what would you say was the best keyboard on any 8-bit machine?
Well, for me, the best keyboard actually not by a distance because two different computers used the same one. The Computers Lynx, that had a mechanical keyboard, and yeah, that felt really good. And it's the same one that the BBC Master used, and yeah, no hesitation, that's the keyboard it would have.
I mean, I know I joked. I answered that question in
yeah.
I know. I joked. I just answered everything Commodore 64. But out of the 8-bit computers I used, it would have to be the BBC keyboard.
I think so. Yeah, I did acquire an MSX. Back to Ox is saying an MSX2. I did acquire an MSX last year, and it's got a really, really nice keyboard. My mate does own a Computers Lynx. He keeps meaning to bring it up, and we're going to do a kind of look at off it. But he did say that the keyboard is really nice. But the Atari 800 keyboard was I loved the one, the original Atari 800.
I barely remember it, to be honest. I mean, I know what it looks like, and that it's a big old unit, the old original 800. But yeah, I can barely remember how the keyboard felt while using it.
It wasn't very clicky. There wasn't a lot of movement, but it was quite solid.
Oh, he's got to be better than the 400 anyway. The Atari 400 had the worst keyboard I have ever used. That was fucking awful.
It was a membrane. It wasn't much better.
Yeah, and you were having to press really fucking hard on the things just to get the key or get the character to appear on screen. I hated it.
That was like a ZX81 keyboard, wasn't it?
This was even worse than the ZX81.
Was it really? Yeah.
I mean, it's bigger, so I guess it had that going for it. But yeah, I mean, actually typing on it was just horrific.
Robert is saying here the worst keyboard he ever used was the Auric.
I mean, it wasn't great, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Was the Auric not like little white buttons?
Yeah.
Aye.
Very, very sort of like thin.
And was it similar to this at the Dead Flesh Spectrum? That kind of spongy feel, was it?
No. It was like quite hard plastic. But yeah, I didn't mind it. I mean, it wasn't brilliant. You were never going to touch type with the thing, but yeah, it was okay.
What about the C64 keyboard? I mean, the C64 is a lovely machine, as we know, but the keyboard's a bit naff. I mean, it was too springy. I thought there was a lot of play in the keys.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 64 keyboard. It's the weak point of the whole machine. I mean, aesthetically, it's not great. You know, if you got the original bread bin one, because it's brown, and a bit of brown. But you don't buy computers for the aesthetics. Even today, well, I certainly don't. Anyway,
I don't mind the keyboard on the 64. I mean, it's a lot better than all the membrane keyboards.
Oh, well, yeah, certainly a lot better than those. Yeah.
I have to say, although I'm not a big fan of it, it never actually bothered me. I mean, the only keys that I used was shift, run, stop, and space.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember in a lot of your videos, you always kept saying no one on the Commodore 64 used keys. They always used joysticks. Yeah, someone
Really?
here always used keys. I much prefer using keys to using joysticks. So, yeah, I used to use the 64 keyboard a fair bit. It wasn't great. And I've used worse, as I say, but yeah, not the best thing about it.
The thing is, I don't recall. I mean, did most of the games support keyboards? I don't think they did. Or at least I didn't think they did anyway.
If you had a game that used joystick in port 1, then whether it officially supported keyboard or not, you could use keys. I mean, they weren't great. They were control 2 left and right, 1 and that, I think it was the arrow pointing left was up and down, and space was fire. But if it was port 2 and there were no actual keys configured for the game, then yeah, you had to use a joystick then.
Well, it never worked. So did you make a conscious decision to use keyboards? Or
Yep.
was it you never?
Yeah, whenever the option was there, if it was joystick or keys, I always used keys.
Even something like Paradroid or whatever, or not that you never played Paradroid, but
Well, I played it enough to know what I thought of it. If memory serves, Paradroid was joystick only. I don't think there was the option there.
Now, what about yourself, Panther? Were you a keyboard man or a joystick?
Joysticks all the way, mate. All the way. I started off with keyboard when I had my Specky. I mean, because I had the Spectrum Plus, it weren't the dead flesh jobby. And I see DJ Steve Jennings saying QAOP. That's what I used to use: QA, OP, and space. And I do that now. If I'm just checking the game out on Vice, I've got that. Actually, I've got QA, OP, and M on the keyboard now. But no, that was one of the big draws of when I jumped to the 64 was I didn't have to plug something else in before I could attach a joystick. But now I don't like joysticks. I prefer gamepads, so I got used to them. Although I say that, given the choice, I would use an arcade stick above everything else. That's why all the emulators I've got everywhere else are also on my arcade cabinet. And you play something like Iridium on an arcade cabinet with an arcade stick, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do to get get the light Iridium. or well, have that set up, but play Iridium Plus, and you might actually like it.
That's a bit easier, yeah. So what joystick did you use in Panther?
I used to use the Competition Pros. I had I don't know what happened to them. I don't remember getting rid of them.
Is that? I don't know. Is that? No.
No, that's a zip stick, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know what that is.
They're the same shape as the ones that come out of the 64 and the Mini. That shape.
Ah, got you.
With the
Right,
round
right.
top. I bought two at once when I had my Amiga, and they were the clear plastic shell ones, so you could see all the guts inside. And what I did was, one of them I converted because I was a novice at the time and didn't take things apart. I run a lead down the outside, cut a little slot out to put it in, so I could use 2 fire buttons on my Amiga when I was playing Alien. But I don't know what happened to them. I don't remember getting rid of them. But I mean, I've moved about a bit, when the kids were little and that. But when we moved to Devon, I mean, I moved nearly 300 miles and nothing got left behind. I ain't got a clue where they went. I've got a Commodore 64 modem somewhere as well. Well, fucking knows where that's gone either. But you would have thought it'd have been with all the other 64 stuff. But yeah, Commodore 64 Pro were the ones I used to use.
That's the thing, though. I mean, looking back, in the present day, looking back now, you think, why did I throw out my Zap collection? Why did I throw out, peripherals for a C64? Back then, I couldn't. I mean, as I've mentioned this loads of times, not many of us could afford to have more than one system. So if you wanted to move from a C64 to an Amiga, you had to sell the C64. And as far as I was concerned, I was upgrading all the time. So if I had an old joystick lying about, I'd just tossed it. I had no reason to keep it. You know what I mean? Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I've still got 2 A1200s, and I don't know where the second one came from. I know the first one. I know I bought one originally, and the RS232 port knackered on it. I used to go on BBSs a lot, so I had a mate in South East London, and he swapped that Amiga with me for another one because he could fix it. And I've still got that one. But when we were sorting all that stuff out to move in 2013, I was getting stuff out of the loft and seeing if it still worked. And I was like, another A1200 here. Fuck did that come from? Honestly, I've looked at what's on the hard drive. I haven't got a clue. And in the 90s, when I've got a 64 again, I was trying to buy software. I managed to get a disk drive and that. And I was going over car boot sales. But of course, people wouldn't just sell you the games. They sold you everything. So at one point, I think it was in about 1995-ish, I had 11 Commodore 64s. And apart from one 64C and one bread bin, I gave them all away to friends and family because I only wanted the software and like the disk drive and the joysticks and whatever. Mm-hmm. I wish I hadn't have done that because it would have saved me a lot of money when I got back into it. I'm up to 14 again now, but it's cost me a few £100 to do it.
12 of which I've sold to you, but anyway. All broken, now you've got them bloody fixed.
One of them, them ones off yours, one of the bread bins. My mate, Adam Kane, that one stayed with him because he basically fixed all the other ones. And he said, I don't know how much. He says, it costs too much money. He goes, I'll put it back. He goes, or just swap it for that broken bread bin because it's a nice mint one. He goes, no, I'll do it for nothing, just a straight swap. And I went, well, go on then. Can I have the SID out of it? Because I know it sounds nice. And he went, all right then. And he sent the SID back. And that was it. So that one of yours, as far as I know, is in a lock-up in Southampton now.
I can tell you a true story back in, I'll tell you when it was 2007, we were moving house, and I had a C64 which stopped working. I put it in the bucket. I literally just put it in my grey bin and just put a bag of rubbish on top of it.
Oh, shocking.
Shocking, really. Anyway, it's actually quite, I like the fact that you can bring up the questions in this, and you can actually see the avatars in their full glory. Is that a bespeckled yak, or ox, obviously?
With a bra and a pair of pants and some socks.
So anyway, right, Mr. L, you can see can you see the question? You can, eh?
Yeah.
So which computers back in the day did you hanker after but couldn't afford?
Commodore 128 straight away.
Mm.
If I could afford one now, I'd buy one now. Well, a 128D because I'd want the 8580 SID in it. Yeah, that all day long.
Even more than a 16-bit one, yeah.
Oh yeah. The 16-bit era, I just don't look back on it with any sort of sense of nostalgia. Really, there were a few decent Amiga games, and I had some decent Amiga public domain releases, music discs and demos and that. But no, it just doesn't really do anything for me. If I'm looking back at retro stuff, it's always the 64 and more recently the 128. The Amiga, I just give or take it. It just.
Interesting. I'm pretty much the same. I mean, I had obviously went from a C64 to Atari. I only had the ST for about probably not even a year. Then I went to the Amiga. And as much as I love the Amiga, I don't have the same nostalgia for it. Is that probably just an old age thing? Do you think it is?
It could be something as simple as that. Just the age we were when we got it. But the problem with it is that unless there were games for it that really showed off, what the 16-bit, systems could do. So games like Frontier, Carrier Command, Dungeon Master, those three were great. But there were so many other games where it was basically it's the same old game as we were playing on the 64, like 5, 6, 7 years earlier. But the graphics have been a bit tarted up, and that's it. It just no.
Yeah. What about yourself, Panther? Any computers that you hankered after? Back in the day?
I'm with Lucosa. I wanted a 128 and I couldn't afford it at the time. And then by the time I changed, I started off. I went Spectrum, 64, ST, Amiga, and then I left computers alone for a while. I kept my Amiga until 1999, and then I got a PC and I used them in tandem for a while, and then the Amigas went away and I stuck with the PC. But at the time, when I was a teenager, and in 1986, 87, I was 14 going to 15. So I didn't have a job. I was still at school, and my mum and dad didn't have the money. I mean, they bought me my ST as a dual Christmas birthday present type thing, but they didn't have the money at the time to buy a 128, and I'd have loved the Commodore 128.
And was that even when you had a C64 that you wanted the 128?
Yeah, because hindsight, we can see they didn't do that much with it. But when it first come out, it looked like it was going to be something special. But I ended up a year or so later getting an ST, but I really wanted a 128. It's only been recently that I even knew about the things like the 128D and that. I'd never even seen an SX64, the briefcase version one, the little screen on it.
Yeah.
Never even seen them. They go for silly money now. Well, I saw a 128D on eBay. I think it's still on there. It's pretty much in mint condition, and they want 700 quid for it.
I can unfortunately go worse than that. There was a 128 on eBay that I was looking at. It was in pretty good condition, but it was a 128 flat. It wasn't a 128D. They wanted 900 for it.
There's a guy on eBay who sells. I think I've seen him. He sells a Computer Links. I've seen him. He sells an Oric Atmos. I think it is. He also sells a Atari 800, and he puts like £1,000. It's just bloody plain ridiculous the price he puts out. Nobody in their right mind is going to buy that.
They will. I mean, look at that Commodore 64 silver label that was sold a couple of years back. It was a low serial number. I can't remember if it was below 100 or below 1,000, probably below 100. And it went for 1,800 quid, a 1982 Commodore 64. And it does exactly the same, barring a different sound chip, as the two 64Cs I bought Christmas before last for 26 quid. All because someone spelt Commodore wrong on eBay.
But it's not got the magical number on it. I never really get that at all. If it was a number one, I could understand. But
well, as far as I know, it went to, I think it was someone in Europe, possibly Italy, and they was actually a collector museum type thing. So it's not going to end up hidden away in a cupboard. I think it's actually going to be on display and occasionally used. So if that's fair enough, but I couldn't justify spending that much money. The most money I've paid for a Commodore 64 since I've got back into it again is 60 quid, and that's I wouldn't go above that. And that's only because it was mint.
Yeah. What do they got? I mean, I've not bought any like old systems for a long time. What's a C64 going for these days? Or working
anywhere between, if they're on if they're on auction, they can go from anywhere between 40, 50 quid up to 150, depending on what sort of nick they're in, whether they've been refurbished, low serials and crap like that. But your Commodore Garden 64, if it's a good, say 64C for example, if it's in good nick, it's got a working power supply, it's got a tape deck and maybe a few games in a joystick, 75 quid is a reasonable price for one of them. But it depends. Like the two I bought for 26 quid, when you had the post on that, it was 35 quid, I think. And one of them, the case was smashed to fuck, and I had to. I could have stuck it all back together, but I saw someone selling a 64C shell by itself for a tenner, so I had that and rebuilt it that way. But so there you go. It cost me 40 quid, say, for two 64Cs. But the thing is, even though they were really, really dirty, and one of them was smashed to bits, once I had a look inside and I plugged them both in, they both worked straight away. The 64Cs are pretty bulletproof in terms of time.
I mean, I've got a bread bin in my cupboard which has got is it Jiffy DOS or something installed in it?
Oh yeah.
Aye, but that's in my cupboard, and I've just got a 64C which I use as my main machine for running stuff. And I also bought myself one of these power adapter things. You know, it's a brand new power adapter because one of the guys at the computer club told me that, you know, apparently the old power adapters were the things that if that blew up, it would just fry the chips or something. They
can do that. Although it seems to be as they're getting older, they're just dying. My one died, the one that I've been using for the last couple of years. I've got a saver cable in between it, so if the volts had gone up, that would have just cut it off completely.
Yeah.
But my mate Adam, what he does is you send him your brick, or if he's got a spare one, he'll do a swap with you, which is what I'm doing with him. And he charges. I'm not going to go into money, but he charges. It's just say it's less than 40 quid. And what he does is he completely rips out the innards and puts in a modern 5 volt, 9 or 12 volt, whatever it is, and it's got a little blue light on the top of it now. So I've got a black power supply, all modern parts in it. But because I paid 25 quid for it, I've still got my saver cable in between, so I'm doubly protected now. but that's the thing. Everyone says, "Oh, it can fry your computer." Well, that power supply, and that was in between the last SIP video we did. It went, and all that happened was there was a buzz and the computer just shut off. And I thought, that's strange. And I spoke to my mate, and he said, "Well, put it up to your ear hole." And he said, "Can you hear anything?" And I went, "No, it's silent." He goes, "If you can't hear a single buzz, it's dead." So I didn't shoot any volts out at all. It just died. So that's in a box now to go in whenever I can post it off again. But yeah, it is better to have a new one, but they don't always fry the computers.
Yeah. Was it not the very early C64s that were like encased in solid plastic? The way I thought.
Yeah, they got potting compound in it. Apparently, it helps with heat dissipation. But so that's why they weigh so much. They're in solid plastic. That's even the one that broke of mine that I'm sending back to him. That was 1990, I think the date quality mark on the bottom of that is, and that was still encased in potting compound. Good anti-burglar devices. Someone breaks in, you knock someone around the box.
Evening, Stephen. Mr. Thornburg, I wanted an original Atari 800 Solomon Dixon's, but it was just way too expensive, and it ended up with a ZX81. Bloody, I'll talk about a slap in the face, that, You wanted an Atari, and you got a ZX81. Anyway, we're kind of we're getting off topic. So we've agreed that probably the BBC would be the ultimate keyboard.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, the master
one. Right, I'm going to add an extra section in here. Colour palette.
Commodore 16. If we're talking, seriously, if we're talking 8-bit computers, Commodore 16 had 128 colours.
Really?
Absolutely, vastly outperformed the 64.
I didn't know that. Really? It's a pity I didn't actually know how to use them, eh?
Well, actually, if you look at the Commodore 16 version of Trailblazer, it does actually look quite impressive. So clearly, I think it was Sean Sudden did the Commodore 16 version of that.
Yeah, he did.
And you got the colours on that. Really nicely done. So, in the hands of someone who can actually program the thing, the Commodore 16 was not all bad.
Yeah, I think, Sean Southern became a bit of a gaming god amongst C64, C16 owners, because I think he was the only person that actually knew how to program the damn thing. Certainly not the programmer, Green Beret. And I think you had some like 9 out of 10 in the top 10 charts at the time.
Sorry, I missed that. I just caught something in the comments there. Graham Cowie, Atari 8-bit had 512 colours. I didn't know it had as many as that.
Is that right? Interesting. I don't know. Well, I was going to say the Atari, but I'm not. I'm not technical at all, so I'm not quite sure. So the C16, you reckon? Well,
of the ones I saw, but it looks like the Atari 8-bit may trounce it.
Maybe we'll take it, right? Okay, so we've got what have we got? We've got the BBC keyboard. I don't know what like graphic capability.
Well, if we're talking about colour palette before we go, I'd still pick the Commodore 64 out of the machines I used. Now, everyone says, oh, it's washed out and everything's brown. There's 2 shades of brown. They just used it a lot in games. And I've seen some people do not so much digitized, they look like digitized photographs, actually doing it with a 64, doing it properly so all the different planes are set out right so they could use as many colours as possible. And if you look at a picture done like that on a 64, the colour looks a lot more natural than, say, something like the Spectrum, which has got very bright, vibrant colours, for actually natural colours. So out of the machines I used at the time, I would say the 64 for me personally. But I know that the Atari, I didn't know it had 512, but I know the Atari had a better, wider range of colours, and it was still a similar palette to the 64s, but just a wider amount of colours. That had good natural colours as well. But I never really used one. Then my mum and dad's friend had one, but it used to take about a week to load a game on the Atari. There was no fast loading. Was there?
Yeah, the Atari 100s. It was. I don't know if it had tape loaders, but yeah, I mean the tape was literally about an inch thick to load a single game. One of the best games in Atari to kind of show off the colour palette, I think, is the opening sequence to, what do you call it? Not Behind Jagged Lines. That was the bootleg version of it. Rescuing Fractalis.
Rescuing Fractalis.
Yeah, it's got a kind of spaceship, all the different kind of colours of grey. It does look really impressive. So yeah, we're going to have to go for the Atari 100.
Although we haven't mentioned that Colin Jones has just mentioned in the chat there that the Amstrad had 27 colours. Now, I'd agree, the Amstrad has got some really pretty graphical colours. Until you try to move them about on the screen, then it's just bollocks.
Yeah.
And is that why so many ports? I mean, said Arcade Perfect My Arse, which I recorded tonight, Amstrad was a direct copy of the Spectrum, only not as good. The scrolling was a bit jerkier and it played a bit slower. So was that because it was just more difficult to program, and that's why they just took the easy option? And
look at some of the Amstrad games where they were doing like Amstrad versions of a Commodore 64 game, and they took the scrolling out completely and just made it flip screen. I know they did that with Whizball, and I'm sure there was some other ones where they did that again as well. So yeah, it would appear scrolling was A, not easy to implement, and B, even if it was implemented, it looked like shit anyway. So I just decided not to bother with it a lot of the time.
Well, then you get a game on the Amstrad like Chase HQ, and it's like, why didn't they just let that guy program everything?
Yeah.
Right. Well, he didn't have the most colours, but graphically and the way it moved, I mean, it was a very good port.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what Neil's asking here. Didn't Amstrad have a mechanical graphics chip? What the bloody hell does that mean?
Not a clue.
Neil, would you care to sort of expand a little bit? We're all a bit too thick to understand a mechanical graphical chip. I have no idea what that would be.
Sounds like something out of Stargate.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, that is indeed a Vectrex behind me. There, is it there? Yeah, it is. And that's my little main cab thing that I made up. quite proud of that. It's got sticky tape, black tape holding the screen together, but it works really, really well. So, what's Colin saying? Amstrad did not have hardware scrolling, and there was a lot more to move about than the C64. So, is that why a lot of the screens on Amstrad games are very small as well? Quite small play areas, wasn't it?
Was it? I'll take your word for it. You're asking me about Amstrad stuff. I used an Amstrad maybe twice in my entire life. I have no interest in the things, so yeah, I don't know the first thing about them.
Yeah, I
I've
do
got
know.
one, but I haven't really used it that much.
So, what? Right, okay, we've determined that the Atari, probably with its 800 and whatever it was, colours. What would we say? Any graphical ability?
I just want to say hello to my mate Ian. All right, Ian. Oh, yeah, I'll see you on Sunday, mate.
What we're talking about? Yeah, graphical wise, I mean, obviously we know that the C64 couldn't do vector graphics.
Yes,
I think
it
the speed of how
So it could do vector graphics. It's just
not as
that yeah, they were a bit slow because, of course, vector graphics are so processor centric. That was the only problem. If the Commodore 64's processor ran at the same speed as the BBC Micros, it would have, you know, everyone always uses Elite as the example, and they always say, "Oh, Spectrum Elite, you know, is so much better than the Commodore 64 one." Well, yeah, it does run smoother, but if the 64 processor was running at the same speed as the BBC Micro, 64 version would have pissed all over the Spectrum one. So it's purely down to, you know, the processor speed. So vector graphics I'd sort of move to the side, but overall graphics capabilities, 64 hands down.
You think so? Even more than I mean, the Atari 800 not have a similar kind of graphical, and plus the fact that it had a quicker processor as well, didn't it? I think. Yeah.
Well, the thing with the 64 is.
Pro Warrior, so we can say hello to him.
Oh,
One bag of nuts and bolts. From the look of that comment, I doubt if he's got a bag of nuts.
Bunch of nonsense on cam. He's absolutely right. I mean, seriously.
Well, only on weekends.
Only on weekends. Me and Al have moved to Fridays as well.
Oh, okay. All right, you extended it a bit.
Right. Okay. I just noticed that Ox is telling us it was a joke, apparently.
Oh, okay. All right.
But easily confused. So what? Okay, we're going to go for the C64. Do you reckon that was probably had the best graphical capability?
Well, it had the hardware sprites, the scrolling. Didn't suffer from colour clash.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it pains me to say, Uridium is an absolute stonking looking game. I don't think any other 8-bit machine could actually pull it off as well as the C64 did. You know, just amazing. Even the full character kind of scrolling and that at the start.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. If you know, I've said to you a few times, you know, I went round my mate's house for a few hours on day one of ever seeing a 64, and all right, I started with crazy comments, but you had Uridium, Hypersports, Monty on the Run. There's all sorts I saw that day, and I was totally blown away by it. And yeah, when you see them great big letters smoothly scroll across on Uridium.
Yeah. Damned impressive. What about processor?
That is a bit of a tricky one. If you could run it in 64 mode, then I'd choose the 8502 from the 128 at 2 megahertz. If it could be run at that speed in in 64 mode. So I'm sort of bending the rules a little bit there.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people go on about the Spectrum having a faster processor, and yeah, on in terms of megahertz, it did. But I've read things from.
Hang on, is it? Is it me or is Panther?
Oh, hang on. I'm getting a lot of lag all of a sudden.
I'm still here, Chris.
I'm still here as well. Am I
I
working or
think
not?
Panther's stuttering a wee bit here. Oh, are you back there, Panther?
I didn't go anywhere.
Okay, seems to be running a bit here.
Right. Right.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, it seems to have sorted itself out now.
Right.
Hang on, let's see. I don't know how it...
Wankers.
I'm just...
I'm married, mate. I don't have to wank.
I'm just taking a couple of people out this stream, being a bit dicks. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah.
Right. See, I'm not a big enough channel to have my own moderator. Or can I actually give some? Can we actually make somebody else a moderator?
Someone sensible.
Can we do that? What about Colin? Right. Colin, do you fancy being a moderator? And if so, how do we do it? I don't know. Listen, it doesn't matter. We'll just... we can just... we can take them out ourselves. So anyway, where were we? Wait, we're talking about...
I was talking about the Z80 when it all started.
Yeah, you can stutter mode for a bit.
Yeah, a lot of people say about it being faster, and it was, it's a fast processor for the time, but it had to do so much in the Spectrum, with moving all the graphics about and stuff like that. It didn't really make that much difference, apart from some of the isometric games and some of the vector games. I mean, if you compare Spectrum Iridium to Commodore 64 Iridium, I fell out of a bloke at school that tried to tell me that Iridium's better on the Spectrum. Well, I actually was talking about this the other day with my missus, and I showed her them both running on YouTube, on emulators, and I had them running side by side. And we had an argument because he said that was better than that. And she just looked at me and she goes, I don't really want to get involved, but he was wrong. So yeah, on paper it's faster, and I've read from people that coded for both machines, and it's not as cut and dry as that one's being faster than that because of what that processor in the Spectrum had to do. The way Sinclair designed that to get that processor to do all the things is, I take the piss out of the Spectrum because I think it's funny, but I would never play down the impact that Sinclair and the Spectrum had on home gaming. I mean, I had one. I started with one. Up until about 1985, it was the machine to have to play games. But after 85, I'm afraid the 64 just left it in the dust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Z80, it may have been clocked a lot faster in the Spectrum than I think the 6502 was in any computer that used it. But it couldn't do as much per clock cycle. So you look at, say, the Spectrum Z80 was clocked at 4 megahertz. The BBC Micro's 6502 was clocked at, I think it was 1.8, and yet it could do far more. It had far greater processing power than the Spectrum had, even though if you're just comparing clock speeds, it was running at less than half the speed. So yeah, there is far more to it than just sheer clock speed alone.
Mm-hmm. But saying that, if you were to put the Z80 chip into a C64, would that not have made the C64 technically better?
It's a completely different instruction set.
You wouldn't. Yeah. Nothing would work. So
no, I know that. I think what you're saying is it's not just because a computer's got a faster processor doesn't mean it's going to run games quicker. But that's probably down to the fact.
Have either of you ever seen the channel Chili Vision?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Well, he does comparisons similar to your 10-minute kerfuffle things where you the 8-bit kerfuffle.
Yeah,
he did Stunt Car Racer on there, and he was measuring because of people saying how slow the C64 was with vector graphics, and it was the fastest, smoothest version for all three of the 8-bits. The big 8-bits, the Amstrad, the Specky, and the Commodore. And it was the 64 version was the fastest, and that was a vector graphic game on the 8-bits. So
yeah,
it depends who's programming it. Much like Well, much like anything, really.
Mm-hmm. I did actually try stunt car racer on the C64 fairly recently, and I was really blown away with just how fast it actually ran.
Well, another way of looking at it as well is going back to using Iridium as an example. So again, people are saying the Spectrum had the faster processor, but you look at you compare how well Iridium runs on the 64 to how the Spectrum runs. One of the reasons for that again is that the 64 almost worked a bit like modern PCs today do. The processor didn't have to do a great deal in the 64. If it was graphics, the VIC-2 took care of it, just like a graphics card will do with the graphics, in a modern PC. If it was audio, basically you had an IRQ set up in the code there to just play the SID file totally separate from everything else, and the SID chip took care of that. So it was doing, you had the VIC chip doing the graphics, the SID chip doing the audio. So the processor, although it was, let's face it, it was comparatively slow, it didn't need a fast processor. And there were two reasons why Commodore put a relatively slow processor in it. Firstly, cost saving, because all of these custom chips, the VIC-2 and the SID chip, were expensive. But secondly, it didn't need it most of the time, because you had all the other hardware, all the other dedicated hardware dealing with it as well. The processor was left to do whatever was left.
Yeah, no, interesting. You older gamer, Steve, let's be honest, the Spectrum kicked arse. For its low price, it was legendary, and there was not a C64 version of Minder. Well, is that a game you played, Mr. L, Minder?
No. It's a simple answer to that one.
I thought there was a version on the 64 for that. Let me have a look at my massive games collection. I could have swore they'd done a version on that on the 64. Well, I could be wrong, obviously.
Really? I'm sure Steve will know better than the rest of us. Yeah. Hang on, how did I take that back off again? A little bit of this. There we go. Think back off. I mean, I don't think. I'm a C64 man. That was my first computer, but I own a couple of Spectrums, and I've got to say I love the Spectrum. I wouldn't want to lose one. I think they both scratch two different types of itch. You know what I mean? They've both got their strengths and weaknesses, like all the machines. They all had their strengths and weaknesses, and tennis. So what have we decided on the processor? Are we going to go for the Spectrum? Is there eight or are we?
Well, I would have said the one in the BBC.
Yeah, if I can't bend the rules with the Commodore 1281, then yeah, the BBC Micro.
Right. Okay. Processor, BBC. Right. Sound C64.
Just write down now.
There is really no contest. I mean, saying that, my tune, the tune that's been used for my intro that you hear all the time, that was taken from a Spectrum 128, and some of the 128 sort of music was pretty good. It was, I can't remember, there was a game I played recently. Was it Warhawk? I think it was. I think Rob Hubbard did the music for that, and the same as Atari did the music for the Atari version of Warhawk, and it's really good. But
they just ain't got the same boom as the SID. I'm not sure your theme tune actually come off of a 128 AY chip.
It wasn't myself. It was a chap that goes by the name of Monkey Spaz, fellow Scotsman, fellow YouTuber. He did it. I'm sure it is, because somebody asked me where the music came from, and I said I have no idea. And then somebody actually gave me a link to the tune. I'll need to find out actually if anybody knows where my intro tune comes from. Let me know.
It's called Dead Memories, I believe. Your normal theme tune.
Aye, is it?
Yeah, that's there's some YouTube channel. It's a few years old now, because I saved it out because of your music. So
it's not a Spectrum then? No.
Don't think so.
I don't know. I'm saying that because I'm sure somebody had mentioned that to me. It might be. Maybe I'm imagining it. I don't know. Possibly, but I think the C64, the SID chip is always going to be hands down.
Yeah. That's not the most difficult decision to make.
Yeah.
If you want to be,
Has one of you two had an argument with John Gage or something? Because I keep seeing his name come up from these retards.
Who's that?
well, anyone who's going to be a fan of John Gage, they must be a bit of a retard themselves.
I don't know. No idea. Don't know. Anyway, we'll just ignore anyone that's been a cunt's going to get kicked out. Right, what we're saying, right? Peripherals. What about peripherals?
Well, I was never really that big on the old peripherals front. As long as I had some ways of loading up the games that I was playing, that was all I was really fussed about, So, yeah, I'm probably not the one to ask about those.
I mean, as a gamer, I mean that's all I was. Joystick, cartridge to be able to copy games or input cheat modes, whatever. Disk drive. Then the C64 kind of covered all my bases. You could get printers for it.
If I had a C64, I'd also want a tape drive as well, because a lot of the time I'd want to be listening to loading music. So I'd have the tape drive as well as a disk drive.
Yeah. Modem. I had a modem for the C64. So I mean, yeah, there's probably a flip up between the BBC and possibly the C64. Do you think?
But the BBC was more modular. I mean, for a gaming system, I don't think the BBC was all that. There is a few good games. Obviously, Elite can't be touched on it, and there are some good games. But compared to the rest of the market at the time, it didn't even come close to the Spectrum or the Commodore or even the Amstrad. But I think for expandability and peripherals, you've only got to look at all the stuff that was in the schools in the 80s. Obviously, when me and Chris were at school, when you were at school, it was still chalkboards, weren't it?
Yeah.
But they had so much stuff plugged in. I did a course in one of my final years at school called TVEI, and we did a lot of computer stuff in that. And we had disk drives and modems and things plugged up. I mean, I would say the 64 and the BBC were probably on a par with the amount of stuff you could plug into them. But I'd say the BBC edged it because it just had more holes to stick things in.
Yeah, I think Steve just summed it up.
That didn't sound at all dodgy, that, did it?
Well, it depends how you think.
Yeah, this is me we're talking about, yeah.
Right, we're going to... okay, and then lastly, games.
Well,
I'm going to be contentious when I can feel that in my bones.
I'd say the C64 because I reckon up until about 85, all the better games were coming out on the Spectrum, and as people learned how to use, like a lot of people learned how to use the tricks they were using in America, like the Epix games, like Summer Games and Super Cycle, and they started experimenting more with the SID chip, and the games just got better and better and better. And I think they kind of drew level for a couple of years, and then the 64 ran away with it. And in terms of library, they're about equal in equal amounts of stuff, but I'd pick the 64. I'd have to pick the 64 because I sold the Spectrum to buy one. For me, that was an upgrade at the time. So that's it, really.
Yeah, I'd go 128 simply because I could run all the 64 games and the few 128 specific versions that came along. And CPM games because they were great as well. So yeah, I'd go with 128 for because there's a few games out there that did run a bit better on the 128. Elite is one again that springs to mind. That was better on the 128 than the 64, even though the 128 version wasn't an official release. But yeah, and I'd still have access to the vast majority of the 64 library. So yeah, that would be my one.
Yeah, I think. I'd be torn to actually decide what kind of camp to go in, whether it was a C64 or Spectrum. But what I did like about the Spectrum was that there were some real original games that you'd never get anywhere else. Your Trash Man, your Back to School, even dare I say the isometric sort of 3D games. There was a lot of real originality back in the day in the Spectrum.
Well, School Days did come out on the 64 as well.
I wasn't aware of that until fairly recently, but I don't know. What do you think? What are the people watching?
Well, the Spectrum had the advantage in the early days, but yeah, like Panther was saying, the 64 then came along and sort of ran away with it.
What do we think? Right, listen, I'm going to be. I mean, I'm kind of got a foot in both camps. Spectrum C64. You guys are going for the C64. I think. Am I right in thinking?
Well, it's not just that. It's the fact that because the 64 was more of a global machine. I mean, it was in America as well. You had more people making games for it. I mean, look at the amount of American games that US Gold dragged in. You know, they weren't always brilliant, but then you had some real classics. You know, like the game series and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the FX games, yeah, and the Accolade, well, certainly the earlier Accolade stuff.
Because poor old Specky didn't really take off in America, which is why people like Adrian Black, who's got a lot of repair fix-it channel, he gets excited by him. He's a 64 bloke as well and an Apple bloke. But he gets really excited when he gets a Spectrum because they didn't see him out there. They had the Timex Sinclair or something.
I think you're right.
But yeah, so I thought the 64 was more global.
Right, I think we're going to have to make that a draw. C64 Spectrum. So I think any other categories we can think of.
Best doorstop Spectrum.
Right, okay, let's quickly top up. Right, BBC. It's got 1 point for the keyboard. It's got 1 point for peripheral, so that's got 2. The Atari has got colours. That's 1 point. C64 has got graphics and sound and half a point for games, so that's got 2.5. The Spectrum's got a half point for games. So yeah, in last place, the Spectrum's half a point. Atari has got 1 point. BBC's got 2, and the winner, obviously the best 8-bit computer, is the Commodore 64 with 2.5 points.
Yeah, I'm sure that
says it.
That was scientific as well.
Yeah. So I'm sure that has settled that argument once and for all. We're never going to hear that again.
Yeah. Poor Amstrad didn't get anything, but yeah,
it's all banter.
So, anyone, any questions from anybody at all, or have they all pissed off because it'll just upset everybody?
And Stephen Fulmer's just put best collection of brown colours C64. It only had 2, but at least it actually had a brown.
Panther, can I ask you, are you in a pub? It looks like you're in a bloody pub.
No, it's my front room, mate.
Bloody hell, it looks like a pub.
Well, I didn't decorate it. I'm renting this place, so that's the way it was. Admittedly, the colouring is mine and my missus. We painted it when we moved in. Our landlady said, treat it as your own. You want to paint it. So I did. But, yeah, it's all, throughout the whole house, mate, there's wooden beams and stuff everywhere. Really handy for putting up Christmas decorations.
So, the next topic, since there's nothing coming from the viewers, emulation versus real thing. What are your kind of take on emulation?
Emulation.
Do you emulate a lot?
I emulate everything, mate. I emulate absolutely everything. I think a lot of the console emulation, PlayStation, SNES, or Super Nintendo, or SNES, as they call it over the pond. Then Mega Drive, stroke Genesis, PC Engine. I think they've got it all down to fine art. The computers, they're all right. They're not so bad. The only thing I don't use emulation for is when I'm recording my SIDs, because as good as the emulation is, it's not as good as a real SID. There's just something not quite there. And I noticed that today when I was grabbing some screenshots for a little project I'm doing, and I loaded up Light Force in Vice, and the filters were just missing. It just sounded totally awful compared to because when I finished, I thought, bloody hell, and I played my recording from SID FX1 on there, and I was like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to sound like. It's supposed to go behind you, and it just didn't. So apart from the sound of the SID, I reckon emulation's spot on. Anyone that says, oh, you should only use real hardware, well, if you want to do that, you do that. But I'm sat here, behind this camera, I've got a 47-inch telly, which, all right, is small by today's standards. I've got a shit hot PC connected to it that emulates everything, and I can sit back on my sofa with a gamepad and play any game I want to play. My 64 that you normally see is just over there. If I'm doing recording or if I really want to play on a 64, I've got that. My arcade cabinet, that's emulation. I haven't got room for 3,000 arcade machines, so I've got one with everything on it. It's fine. I've got no problem with it, with emulation at all. Oh, I almost got off on a soapbox then. Sorry, I'll just get that.
No, not at all.
What it comes down to is when the C64 Mini come along, and I was made an admin of the C64 Mini group, as it was called at the time. There was a bit of a tussle with a C64 128 group, and they just basically got the ump of it, kept coming over to our group and trolling. And in the end, because we were moderators, I'd never done anything. All I'd ever done on there was post my albums, post pictures of my refurb Commodores, and explain to people how I cleaned them and stuff like that. And we all got booted out and banned just because we were admin on that particular site. When the new 64 come out just before Christmas, our numbers went crazy. We was on like 7,000. The group's on nearly 12,000 now, 11,500, something like that. It was a success. Someone said to me, "Oh, you need to have a look on that site." So I had a look on 64128. Someone else let me have a look through their account, sort of thing. And they've allowed it on there now because they basically put a poll on there asking should we allow it or not, and it was like 2 or 3 to 1. Yeah, you should allow it because any way that lets us play these old games.
Yeah.
And I think what it was, I think a couple of the people that were running that had more of an issue with Paul Andrews, who's a lovely bloke, by the way, than they did with that, because they're saying, "Oh no, it's emulation, it's not real hardware." Yeah, that group was full up with Raspberry Pis, Vice, Misters, and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm still a bit raw from all of that. So yeah, I'm really pro emulation. I'm pro emulation just so it pisses them off. I'm really on the box now. Carry on. I'll have a vape and a drink of water.
Mr. L, you're obviously. Am I right in thinking it's all emulation for yourself, really?
Yeah, totally. I can't afford to get, the computers. I don't have the patience to try and set them up if I have got them, So yeah, I just emulation all the way. It works fine, So why would I want to change it? That's how I see it. I got no, problem with the channels that use regular hardware. I do have a problem when they start banging on about, it's got to be done on original hardware, and if you're using emulation, then you're not true. I mean, so yeah, I can't be arsed with any of that shit. I've got no time for any of that elitism. So yeah, whatever anyone wants to use is fine, but for me, it's emulation 100%.
It's always to me.
Sorry, Al. Chinny Vision is a real hardware channel, and he doesn't really bang on about it like that. And I like Chin. I find Chinny amusing. I like his channel, but that's his raison d'etre, is that he's real hardware. And the man spends literally hours upon hours when he does his like 20-minute comparison videos. He literally sets up, and he might use trainers to show people playing in the game, but he'll play through a game all the way on a Spectrum, a 64, an Amstrad, an ST, an Amiga. If it's on the Mega Drive, he'll do it on that as well, and on the SNES. So you're looking at, he could be recording an entire game from 7 or 8 real machines just to make a 20-minute video. With that sort of dedication, he's entitled to say, "I am a real hardware channel." I'll give him that. And he does sometimes, if he's doing an arcade game, he will put up something called MAME if he can't get a video of it in a real arcade, and he'll say, "I'm using emulation for this." But that's what his channel does, and he does it really well. I wouldn't knock the bloke for it.
I mean, Colin has come up with a good point. If it wasn't for emulation, the retro scene, I don't know if it wouldn't exist, but it'd be far, far smaller. Lacosa, for example, myself, for example, maybe slightly less myself, 99% of channels that can have gameplay videos probably wouldn't exist, because in the early days when I was recording, it was literally a a smartphone in front of a TV and it was like wonky cam. But now, you know, it's so convenient. You know, when I'm doing my live streams, you can just dip in and out the emulators, you know, and I really, what really pisses me off is you have these elitist, you know, it's got to be real hardware or nothing. Did they say the same about music? You know, can you only listen to Elvis Presley on 78? So the fact that you're listening to it as an MP3, is that not real? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's all about embracing technology. And it's the same when people go on about like these mini systems. Oh, it's just emulation. I'm like, well, you know, would you rather they put in proper hardware chips and processors and try and replicate the real chips, which would push the price up? What difference does it make how the hell it's running the games if it's playing the game like it was originally? Who cares? You know what I mean? But yeah, like I says, if I'm going to play a game, I'll never. Well, I wouldn't say never, but if I'm going to play a game on my C64, I'd much rather sit and play it on the real C64. Just I don't know what it is. It's just that you've got the proper joystick. You're sitting in front of the box. You've got it on the TV. It feels. I suppose it's more. It feels more like what it was when I was 17 years old, back at home, the real thing. But for the purposes of making games and dipping in and out of games, is, you know, I think hardware's not hardware. Emulation is fantastic, and let's be honest, it's also historically archiving all these games for years to come.
Well, I've mentioned my friend Jeff to you two before. Now, I mean, he suffers with ME, so he can't do what he used to do, and he's still better than I am. He used to play games. I think they started with an Atari, and he went Commodore 64, ST Amiga, PC, and with a few consoles. When he lived with his brother, they had one room that was just a desk all the way around, and they had a Dragon's Lair arcade machine. They had a bit of everything. At the time, watching Jeff play a game was like watching Lieutenant Commander Data from Star Trek. I've never seen anyone like him. In his day, if it had been, he would have wiped the floor of a lot of people in his day. But I mean, he was in some competition in Earlsport or Olympia or somewhere, and he got through the rounds, and I can't remember what game it was, but I gave a game something like Road Blast, I think it was, and said, right, you've got to practice this. That's for the final tomorrow or whatever. Jeff comes second. He didn't bother playing it. That's the sort of game, so he's just naturally good at it. And I mean, this is a guy that spent 9 months playing Captive. He lost track of time playing Diablo. I mean, the thing with Jeff is he plays a game to win, and he'll play it until he knows it inside out. I remember him playing the Dungeons and Dragons game, Baldur's Gate. Now, he played that all the way through, and then he played it all the way through with just one character instead of 6, just to see if he could do it, and he could. So, and he says, as far as he's concerned, the PC is the ball, resistance is futile. Why would he want 20 machines set up? We can have it all in one box on one screen, and he can still play the games and plug in his different controllers that he likes using. Yeah. And he uses an arcade stick for practically everything.
Yeah. Just following on for that, somebody didn't mention, I can't remember, I don't know where it is. Somebody asked, what would you say is the best emulator ever?
Mine.
Yeah, gotta be.
Gotta be made. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, growing up in central Scotland, there was no arcades nearby. The only time I got to play an arcade machine was when we were going on holiday. Always went down to Essex camping, and you'd stop in the M6, and my mum and dad would give me 20 pence for a couple of goes of Galaxian. So I never really got, and they hated Blackpool and all these places, so I never got to go to arcades. And so, you know, my arcade experience, apart from going to college and the local sports centre, was when May came along. I can remember just how it felt loading up Galaxian from a floppy disk on my PC. It didn't have any sound at the time, and my jaw literally hit the floor. It was just incredible having this arcade game running on a PC, and that I've never ever looked back. I mean, the joy. I mean, I don't know when you guys first got into MAME, but I got into it in '97, I think it was, and then there was like a site called Dave's Retro Classics, and was it Arcade Classics? I think it was called. And he would sort of say, that he would keep you up to date with the news with Mame. In 2 weeks' time, the next version of Mame's coming out. Was going to support Yeah Kung Fu and Green Beret. And to me, it was like somebody was actually giving me these arcade games. It was like a Christmas, like this kept on giving. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, with me, obviously being in Southend and growing up round here, so I was down the arcades like every weekend for about 3 or 4 years, while I was at high school. So I got to know, a lot of the arcade games really well, and none of the conversions, whether it was Commodore 64 or Amiga, none of them came close to playing, the actual original coin-op. So when I found MAME, and I found it quite late, I think it was about 2004, maybe 2005, when I first found it. And to actually see it again, all these games that I used to be playing, every weekend, and seeing the real thing, not just a conversion of it, that fucking blew me away. I mean, when I first got it, I was probably doing nothing but playing coin-op games on MAME for about 3 months. So everything just got put on hold. I was just reliving all of these ones. Most of them were every bit as good as I remember. Some hadn't aged too well, but we'll gloss over those, But the only thing I think that impressed me even more, but it was a bit of not quite a one-off, was when I got the Daphne emulator, and I was able to be trying out the old Laserdisc games that I used to be playing. And I remember the first time I had Astron Belt, playing that on my PC, I could not believe I'm sitting here in this room playing fucking Astron Belt, the genuine game. I mean, that was just fucking unreal. So I'd also sort of tack that one on, but I mean, we're still talking about, arcade emulation, so I sort of lumped the two together.
Yeah, totally get what you mean. I mean, the fact that you can run like Dragon's Lair on your PC or a handheld, whatever, it's just insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah, I've got Daphne on my main cabinet. I saw a question a minute ago from someone called Catherine.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring that one up.
Yeah, what is your advice for making my friends understand why I like very old games and not new games? Well, I can tell you why I don't like new games that much. It's because they're too easy. And the reason they're too easy is because since the PlayStation and Wipeout and the coming home from the pub generation, they put so much money and spent so much on getting these A-list actors to record these voiceovers and cutscenes and that. They want you to hear it. So Infinite Lives now. I mean, Infinite Lives was a cheat when I used to play games. Now it's on everything. So that's me. I think they're playable movies. I play games to play. I don't want to be putting my joystick or joypad down every 5 minutes and then waiting 10 minutes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the Metal Gear Solid series. Metal Gear Solid 4 had a 58-minute cutscene in it. I mean, you can forward through it, but the first time it's part of the story, and it's like a playable film. And I prefer the older games that are just pure gameplay. All right, they might not look as good. The games today are real tech demo eye candy, but I'm more about the gameplay. I'd rather get stuck in. If you look away from the screen, you're dead on something like Dogon Pachu or one of the Toad Project games. You cannot look away from the screen, and that's what I prefer. I think there's too much shilly-shallying with modern games. But if you want to sit down and take part in a story, I've seen a lot of The Last of Us. That's a fantastic story, but it's not really a game I'd want to play because it's too long-winded. I haven't got time anymore to sit there for hours on end like I used to have.
Yeah, I think for me is, modern games, they demand more time. They demand so much of your time. I mean, I've got mates that have played through I can't even remember the name. Is it Mass Effect? He's played through it like 3 or 4 times, and he'll boast and say to me, oh, I'm 120 hours into this game, and I'm like, fucking hell, I've got much better things I'd like to do in my life than sit and play a video game for 120 hours. But yeah, arcade games are more pick up and play. Probably for us as well. And you think as you get older, you've got more time. It's probably the opposite. I love the fact that I can just put the name cab on or sit at my PC, fire up, have a game of Berserk, and it's just me against the machine. I don't have to learn all the controls, you know what I mean? And I think possibly the fact that was these early games were what excited me about video games. It was like I knew suddenly we could interact with the TV, and that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, old games every single time. What about yourself, Mr. L?
I'm just gonna just before he talks, I say all that, and I bought Streets of Rage 4 when it came out the other day.
Well, actually, that kind of touches on my big problem with new games, is because the budgets that they spend on them are so enormous, they don't take any chances. So all we get now is sequel after sequel after sequel after FPS game after FPS game, and they all play the fucking same, and no one wants to do anything new, because they have to first of all try and ensure that the thing will sell, so they get the millions that they spent developing it back again. So it's a game you've played a million times before, no matter what title it is you buy. You know, and well, this time the graphics are a bit different, and you know, the sound's a bit different. We've got a different voice actor in for this one, and that seems to be about all it is, and I just can't be doing with it.
It's even like modern games now, and you kind of touched on it, Panther. Now I might be talking bollocks, which wouldn't be the first and last time, but I don't think there's any real. You don't have to agree with me. I don't think there's any real skill in modern games now. Maybe there is. Maybe your games like Call of Duty, whatever it is that they played on it. But to me, it's all about just you can progress a wee bit, save, progress, save. You know, and even I mean, there's been a few games. I remember Amiga Power reviewer Stuart Campbell, fellow Scotsman. He once recorded a video of him playing Sonic Adventure in the Dreamcast, and he actually sellotaped the jump button down, and he just held the joypad forwards, and it just kept jumping. And he eventually got through the first 3 or 4 levels just through no skill at all. Whereas, you know, and I would never boast to anybody and say, "Oh, I can't wait to tell the closer. I completed Call of Duty 4 yesterday." I wouldn't give a shit. If I got 10 million on Defender, I would be making a video about it and telling people. There's no bragging rights completing modern games. To my mind, it's not an achievement in any shape or form, but playing an old game and mastering an old game takes skill.
I'll say one thing though. You're saying about the guy playing 120 hours of Mass Effect is bad.
Yeah.
You do not want to know how many hours I've got in Elite Dangerous.
But Elite Dangerous, for all intents and purposes, is the same as the old Elite with updated graphics.
Yes.
I've got Elite Dangerous. I just haven't got the time to throw into it, and I think they've done a good job with the basics of it. There's a few things they could have done better along the way. Yes, I have watched quite a few of your Elite videos, but you know, at its core, it's still the same game, and it's still got the same difficulty level. I just wish you could speed up the realistic space flight times a bit.
I mean, it does have more than any of the previous Elite Series games, but then you would expect that.
Yeah.
It's very hit and miss, that game. What it does right is nearly always overshadowed by something it's done that's horribly wrong. So,
But yeah, I wouldn't categorise Elite Dangerous the same way as, I don't know, any other first person run about, shoot things. You know, they're all the same.
Except for in a spaceship.
It's more kind of realistic sort of thing. But So to kind of answer Catherine's, what is your advice for making my friend understand why I like very old games and not new games? Is you like a bit of a challenge?
Yeah, just play that last 10 minutes of video, mate. There you go.
Yeah.
3 old men grumping about it.
Right, Ox is asking, what people in the retro scene do you respect the most? For me, it would be the people that first reversed engineered systems to create the emulators we take for granted today. Well, yeah, I would absolutely respect them. Lacosa, anybody in the retro scene that you would respect the most?
I don't know any of the names of them. I'm not. This is one of those questions where it sort of proves that a Friday Waffle style video just would not work if I was doing it, because my honest answer would be I've never really given it a second's thought, so I haven't got a clue.
Can I think any popular Scottish YouTubers at all? No.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Gans teeth. There you go.
All right, yeah.
You walked right into that one. Well, you opened the door for me, really.
I don't know. I think anybody. I mean, I respect everybody. I mean, the two guys that I'm making this video with, I respect. All the guys that are watching this, I respect. At the end of the day, it's a hobby that I'm fiercely. I was going to say proud. That wouldn't be right, because I don't like walking about with t-shirts outside. But no, I absolutely love talking about video games. I love this whole scene. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had like-minded people doing it, coming on YouTube, making videos and making emulators, so everybody I respect, because I don't have any real friends in the real world, that I see sort of day to day that are into this. And so having an outlet like this, where you can actually look forward to talking to like-minded friends about this kind of thing,
Well, everything he just said and Rob Hubbard.
Yeah, you kind of summed it up there.
Yeah. Basically, everything Mamemeister just said. But if we're going for people who are actually in the scene, then for me, Rob Hubbard being able to turn a piano and then write code to then make a sound chip, play those same notes and the tune properly.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm a huge Sid Music fan, as we know. Mm-hmm. And I'll have to agree with Ox as well, Nicholas Salmoria, who did Mame.
Yeah,
definitely.
Even though apparently that it's just a side effect that you can play the games. They never set out to make them playable. It was all about sort of getting the time in and that kind of stuff, correct?
Oh, that's a fucker, isn't it?
Apparently. So that's why sometimes the older versions of Mame are actually better. Like, yeah. I mean, have you actually tried Mame recently? I mean, the most recent version of Mame I've got is about, I think it's 2008. I mean, they've emulated mechanical games, and they've even got like SNES and sort of consoles and that in there. What's that?
I use a front end called Arcade, and the version I was going to lean forward and look on my telly. The version of Arcade I've got at the moment is 0191, which would have been, that's the version of Mame, and that is October the 25th, 2017. And the one on my arcade cabinet's even older. And the reason I used Arcade because there was someone making a thing called Mame UI FX, and the guy that was doing that had to stop doing it. And this, I think he's an Australian fella, took it over, renamed it, and has carried on with it. And what that does is basically remove all of the Mahjong games, all of the pinball stuff, all of the computer emulation that's in there. So it's purely just the arcade games. So that's the version I use. But my newest one is from 2017. And the only real thing I know that's different on that is the GLSL shaders, which really do make it look like a CRT.
Yeah. I downloaded a torrent last night, and I installed it tonight, and it's called Coinops. I've got it for my Xbox, Coinops for the PC. Bloody hell, consider my mind blown. This thing came in, it weighed in at 147 gig, and when you unrar it, it comes out to about just under 200. My goodness, it's got like every main game. Every game's got a video. It's got PlayStation 2. It's got Dreamcast. It's got GameCube. It's got Wii. I never even knew my PC was capable of running these things, and it just works. And it's all controlled using an Xbox 360 controller. And if it wasn't for emulation and these clever guys, I mean, it's just mental, absolutely mental. One of the good stories that I like to tell, one of my mates, Steve Snake, he's a programmer. I've known Steve for a long time. But I interviewed him for a Blind Mates Only a couple of years ago, and he has written what is probably in my mind the best emulator ever, and it's King of Fusion for the Mega Drive. And
that's the one I use.
What's that?
That's the one I use.
Yeah, and Steve basically said that he just got fed up the fact that the emulator, I can't remember what it was. There was one he was trying to use, and he says it was shit. So I thought I'll just write my own. So he just wrote his own emulator, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that these guys do that kind of thing for nothing, to let us play that, and that's the thing I kind of wanted to mention about emulation over real hardware. If it was just if emulation did not exist, we would be sitting here making this video at the moment, and after one would not get to sample thousands of games that I can.
On the end of the time you're seeing, because Kega Fusion's brilliant. I mean, they don't just do Mega Drive / Genesis. It does everything. Does Game Gear, 32X, Master System. You know, it's pretty much. I'm surprised it don't do Saturn yet. It might well do one day in the future, but it's a brilliant emulator. It's the one I use for Sega.
Mm-hmm. No, just absolutely fantastic. I did see a couple of games. I did see another question in here. There's one for Mr. Lacosa.
Game genre you could never get into.
The ones you could get into.
Cutesy platform games.
Well, I mean that's I mean I've said it plenty of times before, but I'm going to say it again. I don't consider the cutesy platformer to be a game genre. I consider it to be a fucking disease that infested, every system going. I mean, that's got to be the one. Almost every other game genre I at least tried, but with the cutesy ones, can you actually? I'm about to shoot myself in the foot here a bit, because there is one sort of semi-cutesy game that I did like. And again, we're going back to the Commodore 64 era, and that was Gribbly's Day Out. But all the rest are just absolutely hateful fucking shit. And let's move on before I burst a blood vessel about listening.
One genre that I could never get into, and people will tell you how brilliant it is, and I mean, back in the day, I don't admit, I would copy the games, the 9 discs, and then I'd load it up and never play it. And that's all these point and click, Monkey Island and all these. I just never got them at all. Never got them.
No, they weren't my favourite sort of game. But I mean, I'm not worried about cutesy graphics as long as the gameplay's there. I mean, I think Rodland is as cute as they get, but it's the actual game underneath all that fudge. It's a good game. It plays well, so I don't so much worry. I've never worried about graphics. I've always worried about gameplay.
Well, for the most part, I'm the same. I'm not that fussed about graphics. I'm no graphics whore or anything, But when it comes to the cutesy, I just cannot get past that nauseating, sickly, nicey fucking look of it all the time. It just puts me off it. So, like you mentioned Rodland, I've never played it because I've seen screenshots of it and I see, the packaging for it all, and it just makes me want to burn it. I just cannot get past that thing. I mean, it could be that the game is all right, but just just the look of it. No.
I'm a fan of Rodland. I mean, my daughter and myself used to play two-player Rodland on the main card, and it is actually good. Just interesting you should mention that. Have you played the C64 one, Panther?
What, the one by Steve Snake?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Steve Snake wrote that. That's a fantastic version.
It is a good version, yeah. Very good. The Amiga one's arcade perfect.
It is.
Right down to the dodgy Chinglish on the text bits.
Oh, aye.
Although when it comes to arcade perfect, though, I mean, well, for me now, it's got to be Rygar for the Amiga that I reviewed the other day. If Graham Cowie is still watching, he's the guy who actually made that. That is arcade perfect, down to the pixel.
Really?
Absolutely spot on. I mean, I don't like the game Rygar, but I can't help but be impressed with it because it makes an absolute fucking mockery of all the Amiga arcade conversions that came out back in the day, because this really is absolutely spot on.
Man, look at that Rygar. I didn't even realise. When did that come out, I think, Chris?
It's very recent. It was either this year or last year.
Ah, see, right.
Yeah, he's still here. There you go. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Graham. That is an outstanding thing. I quite liked your bomb jack as well. So
I'll need to check that out. Nice one, Graham. That was Rygar. Good stuff. Stephen,
I don't think there is a genre of I don't really like. It just depends on how it's
that
like.
fucking thing out.
I don't know if you watched my Dave Perry interview, Locoder, but you'll be pleased to know that he fucking hates Rain Violence as well.
Okay. I haven't seen it, no.
Because his favourite machine was the Commodore Amiga, and I said how I think Amiga Power published the top 100 Amiga games, and in first place was Rainbow Islands.
Yeah, I mean, it was
as well.
Yeah, it was the biggest selling game for the Amiga. You can't
really?
believe it. That fucking shite.
Good stuff. Anyone else? Hang on, here's how you doing, Tony? Tony is asking, what's the only console system retro-wise you still need to get into your collection? Question to the panel, Alan. Well, we'll close on that. You can't really answer that because you don't collect any systems per se, do you?
I don't collect any systems, and I've no interest in consoles bar one. I mean, I've got the Stellar emulator for the Atari's 2600. That's all the consoling I need. I genuinely, I know people think I just say it, but no, I've no interest in any other console but that one.
Have you ever, is there a particular reason why you've never dabbled with SNES games, Mega Drive games? Because I've got to say, I mean, you're an arcade fan like ourselves. You're missing out on some amazing games. Is there
I'm pretty sure I know the reason for it is that when, you know, the original, like, you know, Master System and the Nintendo system came along, I think they were the first two that really sort of like saw the relaunching of consoles. I had my Amiga at the time, and you know, having a computer, I could do more with it. You know, so if I wanted to do something other than gaming, no problem. So I don't know, maybe it's a bit of an elitist thing or something. I'm not sure. I mean, I've played, you know, console games. None of them really grabbed me or anything, so, you know, it certainly wouldn't make me think, oh yeah, maybe I will go and get a console. You know, but so it could be that. I just always thought, well, why would I now get a console when I can get, you know, use my PC and I can game on it and do fuck knows what else on it as well, sort of thing. It's just stuck.
Yeah, I mean, here's a question: if somebody was to come to you and say, right, listen, I'm desperate to play some of the old classics from back in the day. I've not seen them for 30 odd years. What one bit of hardware would you tell them to buy?
Hardware? What, console-wise?
Well, no, just what bit of hardware would you recommend somebody buys so that they can enjoy the C64, the SNES, whatever games again.
Well, buy a laptop and then just get all the emulators.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, no, I suppose only one thing is you still need to be slightly nerdy to kind of get emulators working, especially if it's things like WinUAE.
I don't know. When UAE, okay, yeah, it's not. Initially, it looks like it can be a bit of a pain in the ass to set up. In fact, it's not that difficult, really. And of all of the emulators I've got, WinUAE is probably the most difficult one to actually configure properly, and yet, so yeah, that's not too bad. So, but I mean, I haven't got a huge amount of emulators. What I have, so WinUAE, Main, Stella, Vice, Daphne, and that's it. So, you know, but that's all I need. So, you know, for me, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, yeah. What about yourself, Panther? Have you got much in the way of real hardware other than the 46 Commodore 64s?
I have got. Let's think. I've got a Wii that's soft modded, so it's got a hard drive onto it. That's really my wife's, but we like played a few games together. It's not all jumping about games. I've got an Xbox 360. I've got a PS1, 2, and 3. I've got about 4 PCs, one of which is the laptop I'm using for this. I've got me 7 bread bins, 7 64Cs, a VIC 20, an Amstrad CPC 464, a Speccy 128 plus 2 grey, 2 A1200s. I've got a GP XD. I've also got a broken Game Gear and a broken Master System, but I'm hoping to have a word with someone soon to get them sorted out one way or another. So I've got a few bits and pieces, but I'd rather use emulators. I mean, I've got where my 64 is about 8 foot away from my telly, and I've got a SCART extension from the telly, and I've got SCART leads for all the different things. And for the Amstrad, I bought the breakout kit, so I don't have to use the colour monitor for it. And it's just such a faff to set them up when I've got, you know, I've got a copy of Fuse, and that looks lovely on the big screen. You know, all these emulators that I tend to use scan lines a lot. I mean, when I recorded games for something we was doing, I turned them off because I've seen how scan lines look on YouTube and that with the different screen sizes. But for me, playing them myself, I'm quite happy to sit here. My PC runs through I've got a sort of, I don't know, 15-year-old Sony amplifier that pushes out about 400 watts. Both my speakers have got reverse subs in them, so it really thumps. And I've got complete surround sound, and most of the consoles, like the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive, are in stereo, so I get surround sound. I'll play Sonic the Hedgehog, you get the ching of picking up the rings coming from behind you and that. I can't be bothered to sod about trying to tune a telly in that's got a very basic tuner in it, and just piss about with loads of different things plugged in. My telly has literally got the Xbox, the Wii, the PlayStation, and a C64 Mini, and my PC connected to it.
That's you.
That's all I need. So, you know, I don't bother emulating the PS3 because, or the Xbox, I've got them there. But yeah, I'd rather use emulators because it's like Lucosa says, it's just easier. You haven't got to sod about. And I mean, I never. My first console was a PlayStation, the first one, because I was tossing up at the time. I sold my ST, and I was without a computer for nearly a year. And I went round a friend's house that I used to go drinking down the pub with, and he had a Commodore Amiga, and it got me interested in it again, and I end up getting an Amiga. But I was toying with getting a Mega Drive as well. But at the time, I was dabbling with a bit of word processing and stuff like that, and I was doing a college course. And I thought, well, I'm probably better off getting a computer because I can do more with it. So yeah, I didn't get a console until 1997. I think I got my PlayStation. I got the cost reduced one. I got it the same year as my oldest boy was born. So that was it. 1997 was my first console. Up to then, it was Spectrum, 64 ST, Amiga, and so I kept using my Amiga until 1999. I think I finally put it away and went PC only in about 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that coin ops that I downloaded, I was talking about. Honestly, I've seen scanlines. I mean, I'll kind of fanny about with scanlines, and I can never really get it looking that well. Like you put like horizontal ones, it doesn't look that great. But my goodness, they've absolutely nailed it. They've absolutely nailed the scan lines in this thing. And even for like, it's got Dreamcast games, PlayStation 2 games, it's got like the curved screen, and it looks like a kind of washed out CRT. It just looks absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely staggering. There was a question here I was wanting to bring up. From Bruce the Moose. I'm not familiar with Marble Madness on the C64. I'm sure you mentioned that to me. What was it?
Yeah, the music in the 64 version of Marble Madness is truly horrific. It's putting the SID chip through absolute trauma that I don't think it could possibly recover from. It's utterly grotesque.
It's hard to play the joystick as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an awful game to play. I mean, the 64 version really doesn't have any redeeming qualities at all.
Well, it looks alright.
It looks okay. The trouble is, Marble Madness was it was either the first or one of the first Amiga games I had. So I got so used to the Amiga version, which looked absolutely fantastic. It really did. So yeah, after going from that and then seeing the Commodore 64 version, yeah, obviously it's no comparison. But the music though in the 64 version is by a distance the worst thing about it. It really is horrendous.
Never seen it. I'll just take a wee note to myself. Arcade Perfect My Arse Marble Madness. I need to have a look at that one. I do remember.
I think you've already done one.
Maybe I have. You know.
Yeah.
I've actually.
In fact, I know you have because I watched it last week.
Thanks for that. Right, I've done it already. It obviously didn't leave any intangible mark in the
yeah, clearly.
But I do always remember seeing it. In fact, it was Jeff Minter wrote about it in a magazine back in the day, and it must have been the Amiga 1000, I think it was. And he was talking about Marble Madness, and he said that when he saw that, he said he has to get an Amiga. He said it's just absolutely phenomenal, and I had a single screenshot, and I used to pore over this screenshot all the time, thinking, my goodness, I can't wait to be able to buy one of these. But at that point, the Amiga was probably like £2,000. But I do remember when I bought it. Even now, it's probably one of the finest conversions of any arcade game. They've got the sound perfect as well.
Yeah, well, I think there are better versions of it out there, but they were for systems that I think were only in Japan or something. Yeah, stuff like that. For systems that were, well, I say easy to get hold of. I mean, at the time, the Amiga, like you say, was fucking expensive. I mean, we got ours in '87, and I think it cost us $550, which in '87 was a fair bit of cash, But yeah, it was by far the best version I had seen up until I saw your video when it had like that Sharp version on there, which was nigh on identical to the arcade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Colin saying, yeah, that's for arcade games. I don't have the space for a choice of several thousand cabs. So I mean, that's when I moved into my house. I thought I need to get myself. I mean, I already owned my sort of bar top main cab, but I thought I want to get myself. I'm going to treat myself to an original arcade cab. So I spoke to my mate Tony Temple, who's got he restores arcade games. He's got about 10 the last count, and he says, what game are you wanting now? I says, well, relaxing. He says, you're talking about probably $2-3 grand for one of them. I went, that rules that out. Robocon, same again. And he says, listen, he says, he says, if you're going to buy an arcade machine, you need to be able to fix it. He says, are you any good with electronics? I went, nah. He says, well, he says, trust me, don't waste your money. He says, it's so many people buy an original arcade machine. Oh, I've got an original Galaxian arcade machine. There's only so many times you're going to want to play the same machine over and over again. He says, and before you know it, you're going to be staring at it in your kitchen thinking, fucking hell, that's $3,000 that I could do the money elsewhere. He says, best thing to do is either stick with your main card or get a new main card. And, and again, it's like we were talking about before, the purists say, oh, you need to have you need to have a CRT TV, you shouldn't use MAME, the timing's not perfect, but where else can you have the choice of like 7,000 arcade machines in your kitchen? It's an absolute no-brainer. Just seeing, we've got any other questions at all? Anyone else talking about anything else?
You scroll back up a bit, Al. There was one from Stephen Thornburg, I think, about
the budget game. Was it the budget game one?
Yeah, because I'll tell you now, Kickstart 2.
Yeah, always the first choice, and with good fucking reason.
Because not only was it a good game in itself, you could also make your own courses for your mates to play on as well.
Did anybody actually ever use these construction kits?
I did.
Yeah, the Kickstart 2 one I used, yeah.
Did you? And was it just constant jump? You always made them too easy, that's the problem.
Well, initially, yeah, when you're first trying it out, but once you start putting some thought into it, you can make some real bastard courses, actually.
I mean, the original Kickstart was a budget game as well, which is a phenomenal game.
Yeah, it was a decent game. It's just that Kickstart 2 took everything and made it all, a million times better. So that is always the first one I think of. Decent budget games. Kickstart 2 is always the one that comes to mind.
I know it's a game you don't like, Mr. L. Thrust. I think fantastic game.
Oh, I like Thrust.
I'm just shit at it.
Yeah, it's fucking hard. But yeah, I think that's a decent game. It looks fantastic. I love the graphic style in it. And of course it has fucking decent music as well. So it's got it all.
And it's an original game for me because it's the only game that I will play using keys. It's got to be keys or nothing at all.
Yeah, it's a lot easier using keys and joystick.
Even I'll go to the keyboard for that.
One of my YouTube mates, 20th Century Gamer, Mark, he's just recently submitted a high score videotape to what's got Twin Galaxies.
All right.
I don't know. He played it for like 2 hours solid. He's absolutely phenomenal at it. So there's Ray was agreeing with me. Thrust. London Retro Video Games. I don't mind emulating if the emulation is perfect. I like to use original controllers though, or better ones with the same layout. Yeah, I must admit, if I'm playing a game and it's not quite, it's a bit glitchy, whatever, that's a deal breaker for me. It's not so apparent on older systems, but if you're trying to play like a PlayStation game, whatever, I think if there's any kind of graphical glitching going on there, I'll use it. What about for your controls, Panther? You said you'll quite happily play C64 games using a SNES pad.
Yeah, I've got for my 64. I've got a joystick adapter that uses a PlayStation 2 pad. I've got so used because I stopped playing games on the PC and I went to PlayStation. I've got so used to using a PlayStation pad, I find I'm better with them unless I'm stood at an arcade machine. Then I'll use an arcade stick any day. I'm sure something we was doing last week. I put a picture up in our little chat of the arcade stick I was using. That's quite a heavyweight thing. With
yeah, you did, yeah.
So, I prefer using an arcade stick, but I will go for original pads if possible. I've got a USB 6-button Mega Drive pad, and I was playing Streets of Rage 4, and I thought, I've got a Mega Drive pad, and it's got an option for legacy control. So my Streets of Rage 4 experience is 3 buttons and the retro music, as it always was. So I've got quite a plethora of game pads, but I've found using
Even I have a pad.
Using joysticks now just does my hands in. So I tell you a joystick I do like though. I'm not going to get up and get it. Is one of the Conix ones. It's the Conix Navigator, the blue one. You hold like that. It's got the little stick on the top and the trigger on the front. That one and the Atari 7800 with a little stick and the two buttons on the side like that.
Well, you're having a laugh. You like that?
Yeah, because I've refurbished mine. It's got brand new flippy flips in it, so it's as good as new. I don't mind that at all.
No, believe me. I was trying to use that a couple of weeks ago, and it's absolutely shit. It's probably just needing. So I think I don't know anybody that could overhaul it for me. Yeah.
Hey, was that, mate?
I'm saying it's a pity I don't know anybody that can any YouTube pals that could overhaul it for me.
You want to post it?
Apparently, Ox is saying 20th Century Gamer Mark is busy on his channel at the moment going for the thrust world record. Believe me. Oh my God, I know where I'm going after this. Somebody did ask another question. It was Graham, I think it was. Where is it?
Is that about the shoot 'em up?
Yeah, can I ask what?
Yeah.
There you go, yeah.
On any system ever?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is it system specific or just, out of everything?
What is your favourite shoot 'em up on the C64? Because I don't think
On the 64, well, it's between two. It's between Whizball and Revenge 2.
Well, you and I were going to have that conversation, weren't we?
Yes. For 64 shoot 'em ups, I'd also include Hunter's Moon, even though some could say it's more a puzzle game than a shoot 'em up. I still consider it a shoot 'em up. I think it's fucking superb. And Retrograde, you got to put that in, I think. There's plenty of great shoot 'em ups on the 64.
One of the best being one of the most minimalistic, and it's Beam Rider.
Yeah, Beam Rider's fantastic shoot 'em up. Yeah. That's definitely got to be
my favourite shoot on the 64 is actually a Sean Southern game, I believe, and that is Pod.
Oh, I remember Pod. Yeah, very Jeff Minter-esque, I think. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Iridium. I'm crap at it, but I love Iridium. But as a pure shooter on the 64, it's got to be Pod. I absolutely love that game, and that was a $1.99 job as well.
Yeah, actually, Revenge 2 was also a budget game. So yeah, there you go, two more great budget games there as well.
One of my favourite early shoot 'em ups was Exterminator by Bubble Bus Software. Have you?
I know the title. I can't place it.
Yeah, it's basically a Centipede for the C64, but it was fantastic.
Well, if you want like a Centipede, if you want a Centipede clone, Grid Runner. Well, actually, Grid Runner, I think, was better on the VIC-20 than it was on the 64.
Even Jeff Minter acknowledges that.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah,
he does. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Graham did say any system, so if you're going to go for my all-time favourite shoot 'em up across any platform, probably for me Dodonpachi, because I love the music, I love the graphics, I love the playability. I can only ever get into 5th place on the high score table, but I'm a moderator on a forum called Mamemeister, and a few years ago when it was more active, we used to have a monthly shoot 'em up competition, and I was rubbish at Dodonpachi, and there's an Australian guy on there who could just rinse it, and through him sort of explaining some of the tips and tricks, I can still only get to level 3 or 4, but I can now get 5 or 6 million points rather than getting 200,000 or 300,000. And that game really grew on me. I just grew to love the music and the sound of it. So out of all of them, that's probably my favourite shooter, and that's from 1995, 96 or something like that. So quite a late one, really.
Yeah, I mean, I love bullet hell shooters. They're just absolutely glorious. You know, and every time I go into MAME, there's always another game, or when I do my live stream, somebody always comes up with a game I've never heard of. It's phenomenal. I think for me,
I try to do that on purpose.
Oh, it's great. That's bring on the new games. You know, that's what I say. I think for me, I mean, shoot 'em ups are probably my favourite genre. I think I'd probably go for 1942. Love that game. Love it.
Fuck
I know you're
hell.
not a fan of that, though.
Eh?
I know you're not a fan of it, Mr. LA.
No, I'm not a fan of 1942 at all.
Out of that series, I like 1944, the Loop Master. It's a vertical shoot 'em up on a horizontal screen. I quite like that one.
Yeah.
I don't like 1942 as much as Lucosa does. I think it's an alright game, but I really like the Loop Master. I think that's a really good game. That's sort of like Street Fighter era, so the sound and graphics are amped up a bit, and it's rather than lives, it's a life bar. So I wouldn't say it was particularly easier. It's still bloody hard, but it's just one. It's like Lucosa was saying earlier on when he first got MAME, he sat there for 3 months just like playing MAME. Well, that's what I did. And every now and again, a game like that had come up that I'd spend a few days just constantly playing. So yeah, that's another favourite of mine as well.
Yeah.
If you're talking about any system, not just the 64, I'd have to go with the coin-op original of Berserk. I just think it's still every bit as great to play now as it was in 1980 when it first came along.
Yeah, you know
so that would have to be my number one.
Graham's mentioned here Raiden. Yeah, I mean Raiden's an awesome game. Graham's saying Raiden 2.
Yeah, that is another. That's when the Japanese game started going mad with not so much bullet hell to start with, but just more bullets. Have either of you ever played any of the Toho Project games? Probably not Lucosa, because there's cutesy and a little bit animated.
No.
What it is
that cool plan? Did you say?
You play you play like a magical girl character, but she's only tiny on the screen, and you're flying and you pick up power ups. Yeah. But it's like a screen full of bullets. There's always a path through. Yeah. You've got to know what you're doing. There's loads of shooting as well. They are bastard hard games. I've seen people complete it on YouTube. I've watched my mate Jeff complete a few of them on sort of medium level. But even the easy level, imagine Dodonpachi, amp it up by 10. That's Toho Project on easy.
What's it called?
The Toho Project.
The what?
TOUHOU Project. There's plenty of YouTube videos on it.
Never heard of that one.
I wouldn't have thought it'd be your two kind of things. It's got it's Japanese, so there's a lot of
it doesn't sound like my sort of thing.
Like that, but as pure gameplay goes, they are fucking hard.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these. There's a lot. Is it Toplan and whatever? They have these vertical shooters and have little like Japanese schoolgirls as the main sort of like protagonist. It's a bizarre.
Yeah, it's similar to that.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions? Listen, guys, that's just kind of hit 2 hours, so I think we're probably going to draw this one to a close. Is there any last minute? Ray's saying here, Robotron is possibly my all-time favourite game. Again, be nice to kind of choose your favourite shoot 'em up. It's like asking who's your favourite kid or your favourite dog, whatever. But
hang on, we can't go anywhere yet because I'm sorry to announce, especially to Lucosa, that although I'm not going to be a Jedi, I'm going to be a Sith because I.
You haven't got you.
I've got a Rolton multi-tool. Right, so it's not a Swiss Army, so I'm going to be a Sith Lord.
Oh, hang on, yeah, see, if it's not Swiss Army knife, he can't claim to be a true,
No, so that's it, so I'm going Sith because...
okay, all right. Well, in that case, I'm going to wait for the official Real Sith Lords website to appear. And I'll check that one out in the video next year.
Listen, guys, I think we're going to call it a night because it's school night. So thanks to everybody that's taking time to tune in tonight. It's always an absolute blast. Thanks for asking questions, and lastly, thanks very much to my two good buddies, PantherUK and Mr. Lucosa. It's always a pleasure having you guys on my stream.
Anytime.
Yep.
Okay then, guys. Till the next time. Take it easy. Thanks for watching.
Shut up.